Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning to you all. The topic today which we are going to discuss is about neurodegenerative diseases of cerebral cortex. These are the objectives of today's lecture, and we will be discussing the neurodegenerative diseases. These diseases are of grey matter and are characterized by the progressive loss of neurons, typically affecting groups of neurons with functional interconnection. They are associated with the secondary changes in the white matter tract. They are all characterized by the nerve cell loss and gliosis, often in specific region of the brain which correlates with clinical symptoms. All these neurodegenerative diseases, they share the common pathogenesis, which is, first of all, there's accumulation of protein aggregates which serves as a histological hallmarks of the specific disorder. And these aggregates may arise because of mutation that alters the protein conformation or that disrupts the pathway which are involved in processing or clearance of the protein. So these aggregates often are resistant to degradation by normal cellular protease, accumulate within the cells, elicit an inflammatory response, and may be directly toxic to neurons. So degenerative diseases that is affecting the cerebral cortex, they are Alzheimer disease, frontotemporal lobar degeneration, which is also known as FTLD, Parkinson disease, you are familiar with that, it is known as PD, Huntington disease, spinocerebellar ataxia, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is known as ALS. These are the 6 common degenerative diseases which are affecting the cerebral cortex. But the most common today we are going to discuss is about the Alzheimer disease. So it's one of the worst plague of 21st century. Now what is Alzheimer disease? Again, as we have said, that it is a degenerative brain disorder, and it's one of the most common form of dementia, which usually starts in the late middle age or in the old age. It depends upon the age, at which age it's going to start, usually late middle age or in the old age, and results in a progressive memory loss, impaired thinking, disorientation, and the changes in the personality as well as in mood. So this disease, it usually manifests within the insidious onset of impaired higher intellectual functions, memory impairment, altered mood and behavior, memory impairment के साथ alter mood and behavior with time or over a time, disorientation and aphasia. Aphasia comes in the severe stage of dementia. These findings are indicative of severe cortical dysfunction. The most common incidence is in about 3% of the men and women ages 65 to 74 have AD, and about 19% in nearly half of those aged 85 and older may have the disease. Most cases of AD are sporadic, but at least 5 to 10% are familiar. Sporadic cases rarely presents before 50 years of the age, but earlier onset is seen with some heritable forms. About 360,000 new cases of Alzheimer are diagnosed each year. So this is the incidence about the Alzheimer disease. Now the causes of Alzheimer disease, the exact cause of this disease is still unknown. However, we can say that several factors are thought to be implicated in this disease. That could be a neurochemical, the most common is environmental and genetic and immunological. The environmental factors are most commonly, number one is cigarette smoking. Certain infection could lead to this, metal, industrial or other toxin, and of course the use of cholesterol lowering drugs can lead to this disease. If we see the genetic and immunological factors, the oxidized LDL receptor 1 and angiotensin 1 converting enzymes, they are tied to the way the brain cell binds to apolipoprotein 4, which is known as APOE4. That reduces the buildup of harmful proteins known as plaques in the brain respectively. The risk factor of the disease is Down syndrome, a person who has got a family history of Alzheimer's disease, those who have got high blood pressure, head injuries, gender, smoking and drinking is also there in the risk factors. If we see the pathophysiology of Alzheimer's disease, we know that this disease attacks the nerves, brain cells as well as neurotransmitters. So we can say the nerve, brain cells and neurotransmitters are attacked by this disease. There's destruction of these parts. They causes the clumps of protein to form around the brain cell. Clumps, they are formed around the brain cell, and these clumps are known as plaques and bundles. Plaques and bundles. The presence of plaques and bundles, they start to destroy more connection between the brain cells, which make the condition work. These plaques and bundles, they start to destroy more connection between the brain cell, which make the condition worse. This is the comparison of the normal age brain and the Alzheimer patient brain. You can see the wide difference in these two pictures. This is normal one and this is the Alzheimer patient brain. Let's see the gross morphology, what happens in this disease. As we know, the brain is involved in Alzheimer's disease. It shows a variable degree of cortical atrophy, resulting in a widening of cerebral sulci. Remember, cortical atrophy and widening of the cerebral sulci, that is most pronounced in the frontal, temporal and parietal lobes, where the frontal, temporal and parietal lobes. The atrophy produces a compensatory ventricular enlargement that is known as hydrocephalus ex vivo. Hydrocephalus ex vivo. See, this is the gross picture of a brain, an autopsic brain found from the autopsy. You can see the difference between those sides. You can see the cerebral atrophy and widening of the sulci. Meninges are removed here and meninges are not removed in this. So the microscopic appearance of the Alzheimer is seen by the presence of two things, that is neuritic plaques, which are an extracellular lesion, and neurofibrillary tangles and intracellular lesion. Plaques and tangles, as we have talked earlier, they are the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. They have abundance of two abnormal structure. The people who have got Alzheimer's disease have got abundance of these two abnormal structure, an actual AD plaque and an actual AD tangle. They contain a beta amyloid plaques. These beta amyloid plaques are dense deposit of proteins and cellular material that accumulate outside around the nerve cell. And then neurofibrillary tangles. They are twisted fibers that build up inside the nerve cell. So the role of these plaques and tangles are deposits of the protein fragment, which are called as beta amyloid, that build up in the space between the nerve cells, and twisted tangles are the twisted fibers of another protein. It is called as tau. It rhymes with the word wow, that builds up inside the cell. I think the concept is clear now about the plaques and tangle. Let's see more. The brain of the AD have an abundance of two abnormal structure, as we have talked. You can see the actual beta amyloid plaques and the actual tangle. Beta amyloid plaque and the actual tangle. This is the microscopic feature of an Alzheimer plaque. You can see the normal H&E stain and the amyloid stain. Amyloid stain, to know whether they are present there, here you can see they are dark pink in color, but when we stain it with the Congo red dye, they become a brown in color. So here you can see they are brown in color. Again, the intracellular neurofibrillary tangles, they are pink in color, you can see over here, but in another slide they are stained with a special silver stain, and here you can see they have turned into a black. So these are the black stained. Again, the microscopic image of neurofibrillary tangles confirmed by the hyperphosphorylated tau protein. Is that clear? Now here you can see the normal picture of the neuron, and you can compare it with the Alzheimer. This is a very clear picture where you can see the neurons, how they are looking in the normal picture, and when the patient is suffering from the Alzheimer's, you can see the difference. You can see the neurofibrillary tangles and you can see the amyloid plaque. Again, this is the biochemistry. You can see the three slides. First, the enzyme, they act on the amyloid precursor protein. You can see here, it's acting on there, and this precursor cut these enzymes. You can see the cutting of these enzymes, and beta amyloid plaques, there are the fragments of beta amyloid plaques. Again, the same picture, you can see the enzyme, you can see the enzyme are cutting it, you can easily see the scissor, a visual image, and you can see the plaques. So these neuritic plaques, they range in size from 20 to 200 micrometer in diameter. They are focal, spherical collection of dilated tortuous processes derived from dystrophic neuritis, often around a central amyloid core. Then microglial cells and reactive astrocytes, they are present in their periphery. Plaques can be found in hippocampus, amygdala, and as well as in neurocortex. अब plaques कहाँ मिल रहे हैं हमें? We are finding it in hippocampus, amygdala, as well as in neurocortex. Now these neurofibrillary tangles, these are the bundles of paired helical fragments visible as a basophilic fibrillary structures in the cytoplasm of neuron that displace or encircle the neurons. These tangles can persist after neuron dies. See, these tangles, they can persist after the neuron dies, and they become a form of extracellular pathology. They are commonly found in the cortical neurons, especially in the entorhinal cortex, as well as in pyramidal cell of the hippocampus, amygdala, the basal forebrain, and the ref nuclei. So the major component of the paired helical fragment is hyperphosphorylated tau protein. So there is a degeneration of the brain neurons, especially in the cerebral cortex, and presence of neurofibrillary tangles and plaques containing the beta amyloid cells. I hope now the pathogenesis is clear to you. Let's see the clinical features. Usually there is a combination of upper and motor neuron features without sensory involvement. The presence of brisk reflexes in the wasted fasciculation muscle is typical. What happened? It depends on the disease whether it is mild, it is moderate or severe. We can judge this by the brisk reflexes in the wasted fasciculation muscles. Usually the patient comes with a different sign and symptoms. Let's see the symptoms. The symptoms are limb muscle weakness. They can complain of the cramp. There could be an ataxia, difficulty in holding the object, difficulty in speaking, difficulty in eating. All these conditions, especially holding the object, difficulty in speaking and eating, they are the severe forms of Alzheimer's disease. Now the signs could be, if the patient is coming to you in OPD, there could be a sign of memory loss. He might say, okay, I just don't remember the things, or I just forgot sometimes. Difficult to perform a familiar task. At the same time, sometimes he is performing that task and sometimes he is not able to do that task. He or she could have a language problem. He could become disoriented time to time, depends upon the severity of the disease. Poor and decreased judgment, problem with abstract thinking. He can misplace the things. There could be a change in personality and of course the mood behaviors. This is the PET scan of the brain of a person showing the loss of function at temporal and temporal lobes. You can see the images of progression of Alzheimer's disease. You can see the image of healthy brain, what went wrong in the mild Alzheimer's disease and what is going on in the severe Alzheimer's disease. Let's see the summary of this. So we said that Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, sharing the same pathology to all cerebral cortex disease, a journal term for the memory loss and other cognitive abilities serious enough to interfere with the daily life. Alzheimer's disease accounts for 60% to 80% of demential case. Symptoms gradually worsen over a number of years. In its earlier stage, memory loss is mild, but with late stages, Alzheimer individual lost the ability to carry on conversation and respond to their environment. Alzheimer has no current cure, but treatment for symptoms are available. We can treat the symptoms, but we cannot cure them. We can manage it with good management, good nursing care. The caregivers should have a good ability to take care of these patients. With this, we have completed the lecture. Thank you very much.